There was definitely a lot of screams, a lot of gasps. Some people were confused. I myself was confused. My sister was like, "That's a gunshot. We got to go." Originally, I thought there was two. It sounded like a pop pop, but obviously, kind of with the more information that's come out, they say it was only a one shot, which um, is a little bit interesting. Individuals that kind of make these politicians and other individuals that are political commentators less than human, which isn't.
We are joined by Dallin Smith, an onlooker to the horrific shooting yesterday at Utah Valley University involving Charlie Kirk. I want to start by thanking you for taking a second to speak with us and of course, ask you how are you and your sister that I believe was with you? I'm sure that's traumatic for anyone to experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for having me on. Giving me the opportunity. Yeah, me and my sister were good. Obviously, still a little bit shocked. Just 24 hours ago, a little bit shocking, pretty surreal. But other than the shock, we're pretty good.
That is good to hear. I'm very glad to hear that. So I want to start by kind of having you paint the picture prior to the shooting to give everyone maybe the atmosphere. Like, was there a big crowd? Was it maybe bigger than normal or expected? Was it excited? Like, hostile? Like, what were kind of the feels before we get into the shooting?
Sure. Yeah. So when I first got there, I didn't expect there to be that many people. There were a lot of people there, and maybe that's because he had grown since the election, things like that. But and I don't know if they expected that, especially with the lack of security that seemed to be there. Um, but the atmosphere was buzzing. There was a lot of people, a lot of phones out, a lot of people having a good time, a lot of smiles. Um, I had kind of sifted through the crowd on the ground. I then met up with my sister, and we decided to go up top. There's only a walkway at Utah Valley University that you can walk, and it was going to go right above Charlie's tent. So what they did was they had taped off kind of up to a certain point on both sides where students and individuals could still stand and be an onlooker, but not directly over his tent. So me and my sister had headed up top to kind of get a better view of everything. Um, and as we were doing that, we were just looking for a spot over the railing to look and oversee everything. And once we did, there seemed to be a little bit of hostility in the crowd. There seemed to be an individual that was yelling, and I couldn't make out if it was the individual that was speaking to Charlie or if it was just an individual in the crowd who was making a little bit of a fuss. But then that seemed to kind of mellow out, and it seemed like Charlie continued the discussion. And then probably within 60 seconds after that hostility from whoever it was, that's when a big pop happened. And some people ran, some people didn't. But yeah, that was kind of the atmosphere beforehand. It was a lot of laughter, a lot of joy. Everyone's gonna be having a good time. A lot of people incoming, a lot of people without backpacks too. So like obviously it's right on campus, so I expected there to be a lot of students, but it seemed to be a lot of individuals that maybe didn't go to that university that seemed to be wanting to participate.
Yeah, the last question kind of prior to getting into the shooting that I wanted to ask, because you mentioned security, and that's something I've heard from a lot of people seemingly that was there, that it seemed to be inadequate. Was that something you noticed like in the moment, or kind of just thinking back on it, you realized, or were you even there like, where's the security?
Yeah, I expected there to be some sort of screening, maybe someone checking the tickets. Like I had RSVP'd or whatever about a week ago, and I was expecting there to be, lines to get in, people checking tickets, things like that. And there wasn't. I walked through two set of doors. I walked through a building, and all of a sudden there was the courtyard with a whole bunch of people, everyone walking around, and I can't remember seeing a single security officer.
So then the moment that obviously the shot or shots rung out, what was the atmosphere then kind of like? Even where you were kind of up above, were people instantly kind of aware it was a gunshot as to what happened? Were there screams, or could you kind of play out that moment that I'm sure felt like forever, eternity?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of screams, a lot of gasps. Some people were confused. I myself was confused. My sister was like, "That's a gunshot. We got to go." Um, so me and my sister, we heard the shot. We both ran into the nearest building. But I was still kind of observing for a couple seconds, and I noticed that some people were still just kind of filming, just kind of standing there. So I thought, okay, maybe it was like a firecracker or something like that, just to kind of disrupt everything. So I ran back out to look over the railing to see like if it was still an active situation, if it was just to mess up the crowd, what kind of had happened. And there just seemed to be more and more screams, more and more panic, people running, dispersing super quickly as fast as they could. Um, Kind of the rough thing about that kind of setup was, it's like super downhill.
Mhm.
Charlie's tent was at the very bottom, and students were just lined up on top, and then even on top as well. And so it took probably up to 60 seconds for most people to get out if they were trying to get out instantly, which is obviously a little bit scary if it was, someone who was just trying to spray on people. Um, but yeah, the individual like kind of feeling that I had was that it's not good. And some people, even within the building that we ran into afterwards, after I came back, they were like, "Hey, it might have just been a firecracker. I think it was." Because especially from up top, unless you like were in the crowd, you can't really see that Charlie just got shot and had
Yeah.
kind of fallen over. You can only hear screams and people kind of dispersing super quickly, and so there was a little bit of confusion. We were up at a higher building, so we ended up going down to floor level of that building, and obviously just hundreds of students and individuals filing out as quickly as they could. A lot of people in tears, a lot of people on the phone. Um, and I was asking a lot of individuals who were there, and they're like, "Yeah, we watched the whole thing. He got shot right in the neck and he fell over," which is obviously super unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
Did
yeah, that
it
was kind
did it seem I orderly might be the wrong word for obviously anything like that. It's not going to be very orderly, but when you went back out and you looked over the rail, like were you seeing like people maybe pushing over others? Were the cops flooding in, or was that scene like as maybe organized as you could expect, or how did that seem?
It seemed as orderly as it could be with the individuals up at the top of the hill where everyone was onlooking Charlie, that they were all filing out first, and people that were, a little bit below them were following. Didn't seem like too much pushing and shoving. Everyone was trying to get out as fast as possible. Um, and I saw a couple officers that were kind of up top where the students must have been and individuals running down toward the tent, but that was like maybe two or three, and you could just kind of make it out by their uniforms. But other than that, there wasn't any officers kind of rushing toward anything, if there even was any others there at all.
Do you remember how many pops you heard or how many shots maybe were fired? Was it just one? Were there more than one? Were you even kind of aware of that in the moment?
Originally, I thought there was two. It sounded like a pop pop, but obviously, kind of with the more information that's come out, they say it was only a one shot, which is a little bit interesting. It just could have been the echo, from that long of distance, and but yeah, to me it sounded like one or two in the moment. It didn't seem like it was a big multiple shots.
Which is for the better, obviously, keeping more people safe that way. And I'm sure it would have gotten a lot more chaotic. I have two just quick questions to end with. I'm curious, and since it's been about 24 or maybe a little more since the shooting, what is your thoughts on the response that's obviously this has taken over news, over social media? I think thankfully most people are again like not they're sending their condolences, they're grieving for this happening. There obviously are the polarized responses as well. I'm curious kind of what you're seeing with responses and what you think of that having been there firsthand.
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of different responses, right? Lots of people saying, giving their condolences, talking about how good of a friend Charlie was to them, how good of an individual, father, husband he might have been. Seeing some people that are, pulling up some of his old comments that are a little bit controversial, to say the least, and kind of using that like kind of good riddance, which I don't think is fair. I think that, in all honesty, that's a conversation that can be had in a week or two. That kind of discussion about his political views and some of the things that he had said that might have caused individuals harm or things like that. I don't know if that's a topic to talk about less than 24 hours from someone being shot. Yeah, no, I've seen all over the spectrum. Majority is condolences, which is good. But yeah, I've seen responses all over the spectrum, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is always unfortunate, I think, in moments like this, like humility and humanity are the two most important things, empathy as well. The last question I have is, and it's fine, I don't think anyone has a good answer, so fine if you don't have the best answer for it, but I think it's probably what's on everyone's mind after something like this, which is like the political rhetoric kind of with political violence increasing like we've seen. We saw the Democratic lawmaker a month ago, now Charlie Kirk. Obviously Trump had, I think there was one shooting for sure, one that I think was stopped before bullets were fired. What are kind of your thoughts on the political rhetoric, where it's heading? Do you think we need to tone it down?
I think absolutely toning it down would be ideal, right? Like when you go back and watch the Obama and Romney kind of debates and interactions, very cordial, very respectful of each other. and that just has seemed to be lost over the last decade or so. Um, and I think it's from both sides. I think that maybe it started in 2016 from both sides, and now it's just continued to be more and more polarized. Um, and I think that it does, cause a certain amount of harm and a certain amount of ideas in individuals that kind of make these politicians and other individuals that are political commentators less than human, which isn't the more polarized you get and the less more normally means the less humane the other side looks. And I think that that is just not a good way to have a society, especially, you look anywhere over X, anywhere over Instagram, super polarized. Doesn't seem to be much middle ground, which isn't ideal for ideas because then you're just pushing two ideas from opposite sides that are never going to be able to be used as one idea for everyone. And so I think that it's important, super important, to tone down the political rhetoric and try to just be more unified as a country. It's super important, I think.
I completely agree with you. And I think, or I wish at least in times like this, that that would be the conversation that everybody wanted to have and not, he said this then and that made him deserve it, or, the left caused this or whatever. Stop pointing fingers and let's just fix the fact that there is a problem. But I want to thank you again for taking a moment to speak with me. And again, I just hope everything's well on your end, having been there firsthand. I just hope you the best. Wish you the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.